Thank you, Bill. And thank you all for being here. We're really excited. We didn't even expect this big of a turnout, which makes us slightly nervous, right, Sue? Now I will start with a general brief history of Muskego. The rich and colorful history of Muskego offers insight to past forces and trends that continue to influence Muskego. With 3 lakes, large forests, and abundant game, the area supported a large population of Potawatomi, and they named the area Muskego, also meaning sunfish. In 1827, the first Europeans arrived and established a trading post. In 1833, the Potawatomi called their Wisconsin lands to the United States, and the first permanent European settlers, the Luther Parker family, arrived from New Hampshire in 1836. Additional settlers followed, and soon there were 5 separate settlements in the town of Muskego. Staking their claims, the Yankees settled in Muskego Center, the English in Durham Hill, the Irish in Dunoon, the Germans in Tess Corners, and the Norwegians in Lake Dunoon. And these settlements basically are still recognized. The town's first school was established in 1839, and the first post office arrived in 1848. And now Sue will get into the details.
Morning.
Morning.
I feel like I'm preaching to the choir since there's so many families here who are descendants of the original settlers. So bear with me. The Potawatomi were here in Muskego and Tess Corners, and it was one of the last occupied encampments by the Potawatomi in Waukesha County. They were located on the north shore of Big Muskego Lake, known as Latondras Point Village, now known as Bass's Bay, which was part of the Tess Corners area in the 1830s. Jean-Baptiste Latondre was a French-Canadian fur trader who married an Indian woman, as described by Solomon Juno and his brother-in-law Jacques Vieux, who scouted the area prior to pioneer settlement. In the 1830s, Christian churches began establishing themselves in Waukesha County as the Indians were moving out. At first, there were no resident pastors or clergy in any communities of the settlers, but missionaries and preachers of various denominations traveled from place to place on foot or on horseback. They were welcomed here with food and lodging by the settlers, who held services in their homes and summoned their neighbors when those services were going to be held. The oldest German Lutheran church, Wisconsin City in Waukesha County, is St. Paul's, dating from 1857, and the cemetery was established at that time too. Tess Corners is named after Jacob Tess, who with his wife Julia sold 2 acres of land for $100 to a mission congregation in 1858 to form a church. At that time, many German families had migrated to Tess Corners, as the Germans, more than any other nationality, had gravitated to the Milwaukee area and its surrounding areas for the farming and to form a new life. In October 1842, the Tess Corners School District was established. Around 1848, after heavy rains which turned the unimproved roads into quagmires, sufficient funds were raised to build a plank road called the Milwaukee and Janesville Plank, and it went right through Tess Corners. The plank road only made it to Muskego, but this road was vital to the frontier of Waukesha County and Tess Corners farmers and settlers during the 1850s and 60s. Milwaukee was the nearest major market to sell the vegetables, the fruit, the corn, the livestock, and poultry that Tess Corners farmers produced. The Tess family is shown owning land in the hamlet of Tess Corners, along with the Reilly family on College Avenue and Sunny Slope Road. The Basses are on the north shores of Big Muskego Lake, Tom Lannon on College Avenue, and the Pellmans on Durham and Woods Road. The Basses arrived in Muskego from Germany in 1856, and they had a couple of cows and pigs and a team of oxen. The land was so covered with trees and hazelbrush that they had little space for farming. In the winter, the snow often drifted into their beds where they slept in the loft of their log cabin. They made their first living by fishing, getting 10 cents a dozen for bluegills and then peddling them by horse and buggy in Milwaukee. By 1871, Tess Corners had a country store and a smith shop, and the building was recently torn down, but known as Schaumburg's for the last 40 years. We're going to put the tax roll book back here too, so that you can take a look at what they were paying for the names. I'm going to read some of the names and some of the prices. After I looked at it, I was hoping that my taxes would be the price that they were paying, because $4 to $7 was a very high price to pay for their property tax. A hotel existed in 1871 where the present shopping center that housed Piggly Wiggly existed. The hotel was owned by F. Shalanda and was eventually converted to a home, barn, and farm, as my grandfather bought it in the 1920s. C.L. Pellman is listed as owning a cooper shop, John McShane as a horse dealer, and John Schmidt as a farm implement dealer and horse breeder. The Pellmans, Charles and Jane, had come here from Prussia, Germany, to the land they purchased on the east side of this township. Their first neighbors were Indians, and Louis Pellman was a charter member of St. Paul's. In 1872, the Pellmans sold an acre of land to the Tess Corners School District for a one-room school. And in 1925, a new two-room school was erected as the population was increasing. The building committee consisted of Charles Fickow, Harry Berger, Rudolph Kurth, George Klum, and Ernst Holtz. We have a picture of Rudolph Kurth. It's a group photo. Notice the clothing at that time, the hats. Wool, lots of wool, itchy. Heinrich Kurth came to America in 1854, and he later wed Frederica Tess, and they farmed in Tess Corners. At least 5 future generations would continue to farm the land on Tess Corners Drive in Janesville Dwelling for over a century. Carl Bolt came to Tess Corners in the mid-1800s and was one of the charter members of St. Paul's Church. Many generations of Bolts have left their mark in Tess Corners, from their St. Paul's membership to a store, a silo, still standing on College Avenue, the invention of an automatic barn cleaner, and many other innovative items. The Bolts introduced Carpathian walnut trees to the area, and many years later, low-fat eggs for reduced cholesterol intake. The Woolman family. Francis Woolman and his wife Barbara brought their 6 children to Tess Corners in 1852 after Francis's distinguished career in Rainburg, Bohemia. He was a veterinarian who spoke 4 languages, held 2 public offices there, and they came to America and lived just west of Tess Corners on the Janesville Plank Road. Yes. That's Barbara. Can you imagine wearing those dresses at those times, ladies? It got rather casual, haven't we? We have some pictures of the Woolman House. Of course, the Woolman House, we have one at the Historical Society Settlement Center. And we have some pictures of the interior of the front of what was the house. It's not the whole house, obviously. It's the little gray building at the very beginning of the settlement center. When it's open, please come and visit. It's very interesting. It's not filled with the woman's personal belongings, but an accumulation of items that we have from that era. And you can get a feel as to how small the quarters were, how people were really packed into these little places, how many people lived and grew up in this particular front room, kitchen, and get a little bit of the flavor of the time. Ernest Bloom's first home was a log cabin on 76 acres on McShane Road, and he immigrated from Germany in 1851 and first worked in Milwaukee for 12 years before he purchased 76 acres and settled here. Here's a picture of their later fine home. First of all, that's the log cabin. And that's where the Bloom children actually grew up. And then the picture below, right there, is the home that they built later on McShane Road. Quite a change, isn't it, from going from one to another? That's more than a step up. Charlie Peters was a carpenter and farmer who was born near Tess Corners in 1863 after his parents moved here from Mecklenburg, Schwerin, and Kamrich, Mecklenburg, Germany. Tess Corners had a post office that was established on January 14, 1867, and Henry Rosenberg, Christian Schuett, and Edward Holtz were postmasters in that order until June 29, 1903, when it was discontinued and then mail went to the Calhoun office in New Berlin. We have some pictures of Tess Corners in 1910, which show a view of Tess Corners. Take a look at that road, and we complain. That's looking west, and Tess Corners Drive is to the side here. There's another one. That's another view. I think it's marked as looking east on Janesville Road. Quite a change from our highways and boulevards and curbs and things that we have now. I think this picture is from around 1910, and it says that it is by Salentine's, that's the front of one of the, if I am correct, one of the stores in Tess Corners. I don't have the year on that. Everyone had a porch. That says it's the John Groff delivery truck at Tess Corners. See the signage up above. I think that's probably what I remember as the Red Horse Inn on the corner of Tess Corners Drive in Janesville, Schaumburg. I could be wrong. Like I say, I'm preaching to the choir here. That's after the turn of the century, obviously. I don't know, 1920s maybe? No, I thought that they might enjoy this. This has the garage that the Indians used right in downtown Tess Corners. That's basically what I have for you. Kathy?
Thanks again, Sue. She really did a lot of work putting all this together. And I hope that she has the history here. I haven't been here quite as long, so 22 years, 23 years in Muskego. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that we have a table back there. And then I would like to say, since it was a German settlement here, Danke for having us here. And there's a phrase here, Happy New Year, that I'm not going to attempt. I can't imagine how you say it. And of course, Gott Gesundheit. And thank you for having us.